Hey, it's Dan from MoGraphCandy.com. In today's Cinema 4D tutorial, I'm going to show you the steps necessary to create your first character in Cinema 4D. We will be doing some polygonal modeling, and then we'll pose the character using deformers, and then we'll add the hair object to give our character some fur. We're going to start in Anime Studio Pro. The reason why I like this is that it has an awesome character wizard function that can just help us find a character to model. So let's go up to Character Wizard, and we'll just go to Presets, Creature, and you can do all kinds of different options here, but again, there's a beautiful randomize function here. So I'm just going to click through this a couple times and find a character that I like that's simple enough to model for us in Cinema 4D. Here's what I ended up with using the Creature preset Character Wizard and then just making some minor adjustments. This is a very simple character and it should not give us any problems trying to model it in Cinema 4D, and that's the whole goal of this exercise, is just to use the tools to come up with some sort of character and ultimately add some hair objects to it in order to give it some personality. So let's go ahead and hit OK. And then I'm just going to go up here and render this in a preview for a screenshot. I'll save that. And we'll bring this into Cinema 4D. In Cinema 4D, I'm going to go ahead and select our front viewport here. I'm going to hit Shift V on the keyboard, and our attribute manager for that viewport pops up. Go to the back tab, navigate to our image. And we have our guy loaded in. I'm just going to change the transparency a little bit, just so we don't have to see it so brightly. And I'm going to start by adding a cube to the scene. I'm just going to size this up a little bit. You can tell right away that this is a little bit deep. We'll go right about here. Okay. Go ahead and give ourselves two subdivisions in the X, Y, Z to get started. And up in the perspective view, we'll go to Display, Road Shading Lines, so we can see those subdivisions that we've made. I'm going to hit F1 on the keyboard to go to our perspective view. And I'm going to right away add a subdivision surface to the scene by going up to this menu here. I'm going to select our cube. I'm going to hit C on the keyboard to make that editable. You can also, I'm going to undo that, go over here on our left here and make the Make Editable button, but usually you'll just hit C. I'm going to make that a child of the subdivision surface. And we'll be turning this on and off as we work to make sure we are getting what we want. Let's jump back out to quad view, hit F5 on your keyboard. And right away we need to kind of round him out a little bit. When you turn on the subdivision, it helps a lot. Let's go ahead and just scale him up to be a little bit more proportional to our drawing here. And you'll notice that when you turn the subdivision on and off, it does shrink your geometry. So you just have to compensate for that. And we kind of need to round off the top a little bit. And we'll do that using points. Let's go to point mode. And we'll select this middle point in the middle here. And with our move tool, we'll go ahead and just pull that up, and we'll eye this front view for the curve. And we'll do the same for the bottom here. Just bring that down just a little bit. And then why don't we just go ahead and do that on the sides? Let's jump out to our perspective view, select both points on the side. I'm going to hit T on the keyboard. I'm just going to pull those out. I'm going to undo that. We can probably benefit from selecting the points all around. Make sure your live selection tool is selected. So we'll grab these points. If your axis is getting in the way, hit Alt-D to hide them temporarily. then you can get at that final point. Enable the axis again, Alt-D. Hit T on the keyboard, just scale out those points to give some roundness to this shape. Let's go into our quad view here, see what's going on. Might be too much, just probably go right about there. I'm going to jump back into perspective mode. I'm going to try something here. Let's see with this head. I'm going to go into point mode, go UL for the loop select tool, and I'm just going to select this top loop of points. Just play this scale up here a little bit. So we can maybe go with a bigger head. Let me see here. It's alright to deviate from our drawing a little bit. Well, let's just scale him down. Let's give him more of an egg shape head, I think. A little bit narrow up top than the bottom. In fact, could UL select the bottom loop of points. Let's get under here. Got those points selected. Hit T in the keyboard, just widen that out a little bit. Not too much though. Next step is to model these arms, and we're going to model this character in a T-pose, but basically that just means that the arms are going to be sticking out to the left and right, and they're not going to be dangling. It'll just be easier to rig the character later if we model it in a T-pose. So what we will do is pop back out to our perspective view. I'm going to go to our point mode, and we're going to select this point right about here. And here. Actually, first, let's go back down here. I think we need to go UL. Let's select this loop of points, E on the keyboard, to bring up our move tool. Let's just bring this down just a little bit. All right, let's go. It's not completely centered. It just favors the bottom half. I think our arms are lower here. So now we can go to our point mode. Select this point and the opposite point on the other side. Make sure both points are selected. Now with those points selected, hit MS on the keyboard, and that brings up the bevel tool. Now you can bevel edges and points. So leave your subdivision at 0 and just drag to the right. And as you can see, a new polygon is being made right there on both sides. So that looks like a good start. And now we just need to do an extrusion to bring out our arms. So let's go to our live select mode, switch over to polygon mode, select this polygon here, and here. Let's hit D on the keyboard for the extrude tool. Leave subdivision at 0. We can change maximum angle to 90 just so it's set there for later in case we need it. And let's drag to the right, bring out some arms. Some subdivisions would probably help here, but we can, so let's undo that, hit D again, and let's go to 2 subdivisions and do this again. Much better. The next goal is to model some mitten type hands. So we've got our polygon selected on the ends here. Let's hit I on the keyboard for the extrude inner tool, drag to the left, and it brings in our polygon there. Let me undo, zoom in here so we can see. Remember, this is happening on both sides because we have both selected. So I on the keyboard for the extrude inner, just drag this in real tight. Hit D on the keyboard. I've got this subdivision set to 0. We had it at 2 before. Let's bring it down to 0. Just drag this out for an extrude. Polygon is still selected. Hit I on the keyboard for the extrude inner. Drag to the right to bring that back out, and then D again for the extrude tool, and we're kind of creating a ball at the end here. This wrist might be too long. Let's back up, undo, and let's see here, zoom in, hit D on the keyboard, just do a slight extrude, and then I for the extrude inner. extrude out, and then D again on the keyboard for the extrude, and extrude out to there. Now let's look at the other side, and we've got something here. While in polygon mode, go UL, bring up the loop selection tool. Let's select this loop of polygons on both sides so we have this ball. Hit T in the keyboard, and let's scale these down. And you'll notice that we're getting some weird scaling going on here because of the way this axis is to this ball. So let's undo. And let's go to this enable axis mode. Let's hit R on the keyboard. Just line this up. Let's go into our side view here. See if this helps us out. Might be able to better visualize this in perspective. Just line this up. All I'm going to do is grab this and rotate this about 45 degrees, maybe a little more, maybe 50. About negative 45. And then turn the enable axis mode off, and now we've realigned that axis. If we hit T in the keyboard now, we can scale this down and it looks a lot better. And you can tell it's a little bit off, so we can undo, enable our axis again, hit R for the rotate tool, bring it back just a little bit more, and then turn the enable axis off, scale tool T, and then we can scale this down. That looks a little bit better. And it's being done to both sides. So one more thing we can do is basically give this character, I don't know, a finger or two. Let's see here. With both those selected, let's go ahead, zoom in here. Let's go up to, when we right clicked, I got up this menu and I just undocked it so we could see it. So I'm going to go to subdivide, and it automatically subdivided that end there. I'm going to hit D in the keyboard, make sure preserve groups is deselected, and I'm going to, before I do anything actually, I'm going to hit T in the keyboard and scale. Let's see if we can scale this geometry down a little bit. Well, hit D on the keyboard, we'll go back to our extrude tool and let's just extrude these out. Well, I think that's going to work. These can be our fingers for this character. As you can see, we're getting that on both sides. So you can extrude those out as far or as short as you'd like. Alright, now that we have the arms, we have to tackle the legs. So let's go down here. This will be pretty easy. We can just grab these two polygons here, go to D on the keyboard, or I first, and turn off preserve groups. So we're going to extrude inner tool. Let's just bring these in. Then when that's done, we can hit D on the keyboard for the extrude tool. We can extrude down. We've got our legs going here. So he had pretty short legs. Let's undo. Let's go back out to this view. I'm going to undo, start all over. I'm going to go down to about there. That's our knee. Do another extrude down to the ankle. And then one more. So we get 3 extrudes. Let's pop back out to our perspective view. So our final extrude could probably get a little bit more. I'm going to undo, just give myself a little bit more geometry to work with, because now I can select these front 2 polygons, hit I for a slight inner extrude, and then D to bring out the feet, and then see T, just scale them in a little bit. These legs are looking a little bit fat. We kind of wanted them to have skinny legs. So let's go ahead and go UL, select our loop tool. Make sure all our polygons are selected here. Hit T on the keyboard, scale everything down. Then just use the y-axis, scale it up on the y. So now we got some really skinny looking legs, very disproportionate body. Probably gonna topple over if you just for real. And this back end, his rear is really sticking out. So what we can do at this point is go ahead and just select some of these back polygons, just move them back in and down, and we can just reshape him a little bit. Can even take his front belly, bring that out a little bit now. And at this time, you can kind of just do what you want to make this character whatever you want it to be. I want to give this guy some antenna ears, so let's select these two polygons, hit Shift-C, comes up with a search command. Let's type matrix extrude and select it. Right away we can hit apply because it's a real-time thing. We can adjust the rotation and everything we want on this. So let's see here, something like that. Let's play with the segments, bring that down to maybe 3. Play with the scale. Let's go a scale of 20 across the board. Too tight maybe. Let's undo that. Bring our matrix extrude back up. I undid too much there. We're going to need maybe 16 scale. I think that's a good start. Looking at this character, before we move on, let's zoom in on these feet. Go to UL, go into polygon mode, just loop these bottom here. Just scale these out. See this here. Get a little awkwardness. Stop right there. So I scaled that 130, maybe a little bit more. Let's go scale it to 190. Go UL on this side too. T, scale it to 190. And now we got a little bit bigger feet, and this guy might appear a little bit more stable. Let's see here. Drag these back 2 polygons, select those with that. Just pull this out, give him more of an ankle, some ankles. So now he's got some bigger feet to help him walk. Let's go ahead and give him some eyes now. This will be easy. Obviously, we just need to use a sphere. Just drag this up, scale it down. I'm going to unlock this attribute manager so I can get at the sphere stuff here. Bring down the radius. Just drag this over. Now these are more oval eyes. You can make whatever eyes you want. Bring this forward. So I'm going to bring down the segments to 12 because we're going to ultimately bring them underneath the subdivision surface. So let's see here. Sphere. Let's bring this down a little bit more. That looks good. Let's make it editable. Hit C on the keyboard. I'm going to go into the model mode. Hit T on the keyboard for scale. I'm going to stretch it on the Y just to give us a more oval shape. And then I'm going to bring in a symmetry object into the scene. Drop the sphere underneath there, and we can get 2 eyes now. I'm going to hit R on the keyboard. Just kind of turn those eyes in just a little bit. E, bring them a little bit closer. Then I can take the symmetry object, just rotate it a little bit. Let's see here, not the symmetry. Let's rotate these eyes, and just set them back in the body just a little bit here. So if we drop this underneath, we can smooth those out, so we're good to go there. Maybe just separate these a little bit. I have to give this guy a nose. Let's go ahead and save this. Call this eyes. Just a quick look in our front view here. Make sure those eyes are centered up the way we want. The eyes could probably be a little bit bigger. Of course, they're crossing over now, so just spread them out. This is going to be to taste again. Let's see here. This just looks like he's got some eggs. Let's go with this for now. We may readjust this later. Just see what happens when we add a material to this. And let's give this guy a nose. I said that before. That might help set this all in a little bit better. Let's see here. I'm going to go into polygon mode here. I'm going to hit K in the keyboard for the knife tool. And make sure you're in loop. You can turn off restrict to selection just in case you do have something selected. And I'm going to go zoom in here. I'm going to create a new cut right underneath these eyes. Maybe a little bit more up here. Got to give ourselves just a little bit more geometry to work with if we're going to make a nose here. Okay. Then, let's see here. I'm going to point mode. Let's experiment here. Just bring this out a little bit, maybe. So with this point selected, now I'm going to hit MS on the keyboard for the bevel tool. I'm going to leave everything subdivision 0. I'm just going to do a bevel here, bevel a point, and then that creates a polygon. We can go into polygon mode now. Select that polygon, hit D in the keyboard, and let's see what we got here. Now we can D in the keyboard and extrude that out, but I've had subdivisions to 3. Let's undo that. Let's make subdivisions to 1. Extrude that out. I'm going to hit R on the keyboard to flatten out the front. Okay, looks good. And then I'm going to hit I on the keyboard for the extrude inner. Take the subdivision to 2, extrude in. Then I'm going to hit D for the extrude tool, change my subdivision to 2. I'm going to extrude to the left, and I'm just going to kind of make a snout. And now we got kind of a pig nose, but gives our character a little bit more detail. One more thing we need to do is add a mouth to this guy, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's go with K on the keyboard, go into loop mode. Let's go ahead and add a cut right underneath the nose there. So we can select these 2 polygons, hit I on the keyboard for extrude inner, and bring that in. Kind of create our mouth here. All right, let's go into point mode. I'm going to select this point and just move it up. And I'm going to go UL. I'm going to go into edge mode, select that, scale this in. I don't want this guy to have too big of a mouth. And now, then switch over to polygon mode and select those 2 polygons. Hit D on the keyboard. Change your subdivision to 2 or 3. And do an extrude in, but of course keep preserve groups. So let's start all over, make sure those polygons are selected, enable preserve groups, and just drag this in. And now we can go back into our point mode. Select all these points inside here, this mouth. Same on the bottom here. Turn off the subdivision surface to take a look. And now we could just hit T in the keyboard and scale those in. There we go. And then just for fun of it, I think he had a tooth. Let's bring this out and up. Call this tooth. Make that editable. Drop this underneath our subdivision. Scale it up as need be. Still think these eyes might be a little too big. I'm going to scale them down a little bit. Play with those later. So here's our final result before texturing and posing. It's a little bit different than the drawing that we took out of Anime Studio Pro, but that's okay. This is just an experiment, and if your character is different than this, that's fine too. You'll be able to use the same techniques that we're going to use throughout this on whatever you made. So I think it's time to move on to posing this character. We'll do that in part 2.